this day, one of the most mysterious facets of ReZero is what really did happen 400 years ago, and more specifically, what really did happen within the Great Calamity. Today, that's exactly what this video is going to be about. I want to talk about what happened 400 years ago within ReZero and the Great Calamity specifically, and how all of those events took place, what we know, and maybe do a bit of theory crafting as to what could have really happened. I already made a video where I did do a complete timeline summary of ReZero, so if you do want to check that out, the link will be right here, but I didn't go that in depth on 400 years ago, so today will be a focus on that and really what goes down and how it all transpired and stuff like that. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you like this type of content, and if you want to help me directly, here is my membership. The link will be in the description below. I post ReZero exclusive content, video ideas, stuff like that. But anyways, like I said, let's just go ahead and get right into the video. So the Great Calamity, what is it? Well, the Great Calamity is not to be mistaken with the Great Disaster, which is actually future events that have yet to happen within ReZero, and the Great Disasters are said to be rumored to have one within each nation, that being Gusteko, Wallachia, Kararagi, and Lagunica. The Great Calamity was the event that took place 400 years ago before Subaru's supposed arrival within the ReZero world and involved the Witch of Envy, or rather not the Witch of Envy, but Satella. You see, with the exception of Echidna, who is actually said and stated to be the only witch that was actually born a witch within ReZero, most of the other witches during this time period and era walked around as normal people and rather not as witches. And also, it is to be mentioned that they are not the first witches within the ReZero world. There have been generations of witches before them who we in fact do not know very much about. But anyways, they were not the very first witches, and they were not always witches. And one of these, aka the most prominent of these, was Satella. During this era, this kind half-elf girl got into contact with the Witches of Sin and befriended them. And during this, she came in contact with the witch factor of envy. And something that is to be mentioned about witch factors and authorities is that you need some sort of compatibility with the witch factor and the authority. And if you do not have a compatibility with the witch factor and the authority, essentially you will get driven insane, as we see with Betelgeuse when he took it in. So somehow, some way, we are not sure to this day what exactly happened and how it all transpired, but she took in the witch factor of envy, which drove her insane and split her personality essentially into two different people, Satella and the Witch of Envy. It is not exactly known how this all transpired and how much control Satella really had during this, but regardless, what ended up inevitably happening was, like I said, that split personality. And another thing to be mentioned is that after this all went down, this is when the Great Calamity started and took place. However, it wasn't the Witch of Envy that committed all these acts and atrocities and, flattened out the world. It was actually Satella who was doing as such. As we know, this rampage that took place flattened half of the world, completely scorching everything to a level of destruction that is hard to even be stated or fully grasped. And the utter mention of Satella's name, or the Witch of Envy, is that akin to somebody of like Voldemort's status within the world of Harry Potter. She is seen as the ultimate evil and the most disgusting scum within the ReZero world. And I think this is something a lot of ReZero fans don't really realize, even though I know it is emphasized a bit in the anime, but Amelia's presence and her just sheer possibility of being a royal candidate is an anomaly within itself. And the only reason Amelia is able to be a royal candidate right now is solely because of Roswell's influence and his backing, because he is one of the most influential people within the ReZero world on the political side and one of the richest on top of that. Regardless though, after all of this and the Great Calamity that started to take place, it was a group of 3 heroes, potentially more, we're not sure, but 3 confirmed heroes who were all from Lagunica seemingly, that decided to stand up and try to put a stop to this. And those people in question are the Great Sage Flugel, the First Sword Saint Reed Estrella, and the Divine Dragon Volcanica, in which even with the combined effort of all of their strength, all of their power, all of their might, we've literally seen Reed, we've seen Volcanica, they're insane, they were still not able to put Satella down for whatever reason, leaving her virtually immortal, in which they had to take alternative methods and seal her inside of the evil sealing shrine that is within the Agari sand dunes. My theory for this and why I think Satella was not able to be killed or sealed is because, well, it's not as much of a theory, but it's because her magic and her abilities are, time magic. She can do a lot of stuff within time, and my guess is that Subaru is, more so an apostle of envy, and Satella herself has an ability that has a lot to do and is very similar to Return by Death. And so when you get somebody with an ability like that who is able to just rewind time and, be so paradoxical with what's going on, it's damn near impossible to kill them. Like, look at Subaru. You can't permanently kill Subaru. In a very similar sense, you can't permanently kill Satella, most likely, because of this connection in some sort of way. And I think Flugel most likely at the time realized this and knew this, because what I haven't mentioned is that before all of this, before this great calamity, Flugel traveled the world with Satella. A group of people, Flugel, Satella, Reed, and Hoshin all traveled the world together. Echidna was also seemingly within this group within a sense, but Echidna did not like Satella at all, and from the very start was the only one who never wanted to befriend her. Anyways though, I'm getting a bit off track. This sealing of Satella took place within the Agari Sand Dunes, as I said, in which Flugel, in the aftermath of all of this, took it upon himself to construct the Pleiades Watchtower, in which he had his apprentice Shala watch over it and watch over the area of the Agari Sand Dunes for hundreds of years to make sure nobody could get anywhere near Satella and make sure she could never get unsealed ever again. In the aftermath of all of this, Flugel inevitably decided that he did not want to take part in any of the credit and decided to give the credit all to Shala, in which his name was remembered within myth, and people assumed that he was still alive watching over the watchtower when really it was just Shala. As for more aftermath, this whole entire saga and calamity led to humans within the ReZero world developing extreme prejudice for demi-humans, more specifically for the half-elves, which at least within Lagunica led to the demi-human war, which had many lasting implications for the nation's economy, its system, and everything else essentially. And even to this day, 400 years later, Amelia is hated for just existing. On top of this, there is huge tensions still between demi-humans and humans, and they have segregated areas, which is subtly shown within the very first episode of the season. A couple other bit of information that I kind of forgot to mention from 400 years ago is he also traveled the world with Farcel Lagunica, who would inevitably start the line of kingdoms and kings within Lagunica. On top of this, we know he was acquainted with the witches, and at least acquainted with Daphne of the. We can also presume in some sort of way Flugel was able to collect all of the witches of sins, or at least most of them, as he had possession of the sin of sloth, which we saw he inevitably gave to Betelgeuse during some sort of time during this all going down. During this time, we also know that he planted a seed with Shala on the Lafaz Highway, or I'm not sure exactly how you say it, and this seed would inevitably grow and become Flugel's tree, which would help Subaru beat the White Whale within season 1 of the ReZero anime. So that's the Great Calamity and everything you need to know, or at least the majority of the stuff that we know and how it all went down now. And many different ways we can go with, as a lot of people look at theories regarding the world of ReZero. More specifically, the half of the world was destroyed part, and what really is that half of the world. A lot of people speculate that upon the Great Waterfalls and whatever is off the Great Waterfalls is a glimpse into what is really going on, and not actually an endless void, but actually some sort of connection and something else. On top of this, what exactly was that other half of the world that was there before it was all destroyed? I think the character that also has the greatest connection to all this that I didn't mention, and notice how I didn't mention, as she is always moving in silence, is Pandora. Pandora genuinely probably had a lot to do with all of this and how this all transpired, and we just haven't been told that facet and, aspect of it all. On top of this, a couple of other obvious theories that people like to make is Subaru's connection with Flugel. And one of the most popular theories that I have seen is Flugel is actually Subaru from the future, going back in time to right Subaru's wrongs, or essentially change events, like I mentioned, such how that seed was planted, Flugel's tree, and, essentially saving Subaru within a sense in some sort of time loop-esque manner. And more recently, people have had the theory that Subaru is a clone of Flugel and they are connected in that sort of way, similar to how the Ryuzu clones. Again, these are just theories that I have seen around the community. I'm not saying whether they are right or they are wrong, I'm just messaging them, so don't shoot the messenger. Another aspect of it all that I have talked about a bit within another video is the moon within ReZero. The author has stated that, things correlated with the moon are spoilers. What Reinhardt saw on the moon are spoilers. Reinhardt looks up at the moon within episode 1 of ReZero and says the moon is watching us. We may never have another peaceful night again, yada, yada, yada. Stuff along those lines, that the moon is always watching, and it is a very present aspect within ReZero. Well, whose name is correlated with the moon and whose name's true names, meaning is a spoiler within ReZero? Satella. Tappei has stated that Satella's true name is a spoiler for ReZero, and we're not supposed to know what it means, even though a lot of fans speculate and theorize that Satella is derivative of satellite, and satellite is obviously, moon, because the moon is a satellite. And this is only further backed by her gender bent if name being Luna or Lunar even more. So a lot of people theorize and speculate about what is really going on within the moon of ReZero and what type of aspect that played in, maybe destroying the world or, stuff going on there. Is the moon a bridge? Is the moon where, witch factors actually come from? Because we know that witch factors don't come from Odd Laguna, since they are the antithesis of, divine protections. More specifically, what does Satella have to do with the moon, and what did she do with the moon? Another crack theory that I've seen is that the moon is actually the half of the world that Satella destroyed, and it became, a satellite and orbits the world. Yeah, honestly, I'm not 100% sure. There's just so much mystery shrouded within this era, specifically with characters like Echidna, who, even from way back then, seemed in more of an antagonistical manner, who she was not someone that liked Satella at all, or, was very fond of her, and also characters like Pandora, who have a lot of mystery shrouded around them. Also, another interesting aspect of this whole era and, all this theory is that Puck was created by Echidna 400 years ago to watch over Amelia, seemingly. But Amelia wasn't born until 100 years ago, so the whole time is not really making sense. The ReZero timeline, when you really start to think about it, does not make much sense. And there's obviously some sort of loop or, no knowledge going on during all of this. Also, another thing that is to be mentioned is that Beatrice's birthday, she was also from 400 years ago, is a spoiler for whatever reason. So it's pretty indicative that her creation and the reason Echidna created her is also probably has something to do with, what was going on during this era. I think what I really find most interesting is how all these characters from 400 years ago are so parallel to the characters of today, in which they all have similarities, but there will be key distinct differences. I mean, you have Flugel, who obviously parallels Subaru, Amelia, who obviously parallels Satella, Otto, who parallels Alec Hoshin, so on and so forth. It's all just pretty interesting to me, as they are similar, characteristics and especially looks, but when you get down to their actual personality, there are key distinct differences. And yeah, last thing I want to say is I feel like there could be a lot of misinformation going on within what happened 400 years ago. The game of telephone within the ReZero world is not one that can be trusted. Misinformation from 400 years ago and, things that were supposedly true have been spread and have been claimed, as we have seen with, Shala herself. This game of telephone that is going on within the ReZero world and, things spreading, and the fact that there really just isn't that many people from that long ago still walking around the world, it tells me that we are probably just missing out on a huge aspect of it all and what really went down during the Great Calamity and how this all transpired. But anyways, that about does it for the video. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for the support. Let me know what other series you want me to talk about. And yeah, anyways, peace.